Welcome, everyone. I'm Bo Breskern, co-founder and CEO of Fintech Nexus. And today we thank Forwardly for bringing this great content to you today. I'd like to welcome and thank everyone for joining. Today's topic is accelerating SMB growth, unleashing the power of instant payments. And our moderator today is Peter Tapling. I'm going to hand it off to Peter right away so we can get directly into the content. And thanks Seth, Cheryl, and Nick for joining us as well. Peter, take it away.
Oh, thank you very much. And it's a real pleasure to be here with everyone today. So when we were doing our little prep call, we recognized that we're focused on small and medium businesses here, and that those of us who are living in the fintech world kind of talk a lot about instant payments. So first, I'm going to give a little bit of an overview of instant payments, and then we'll kick it over to each of Seth, Nick, and Cheryl to introduce themselves and make some opening comments. I'm Peter Tapling. I'm Managing Director of PTAP Advisory, but the reason that I'm here today is I'm a member of the Board of Directors of the U.S. Faster Payments Council. U.S. Faster Payments Council is a member-based organization that seeks to drive the adoption of instant payments in all stakeholder groups throughout the United States. So what is an instant payment? We're all used to seeing a payment hit our account and seeing that little thing next to it that says pending. So the money's there, but the money's not really there. And we've all had the experience of either calling the bank ourselves or having someone call us and say, hey, I thought you paid me. And then the other side said, yes, I did pay you. And somehow there's a payment sitting out in the ether, but it's not there yet. So the advent of instant payments is bank-to-bank payments that happen 24/7 by 365, and they clear and settle instantly. What that means is that if I were to pay Seth $25 because we shared a pizza and beer for lunch, he would get that instantly. Well, that seems cool, but I can do that today, right? I can do that with PayPal or Venmo. But those are not bank-to-bank payments. Those payments, that movement of value occurs in a different ecosystem. It occurs in that PayPal ecosystem, in that Venmo ecosystem. And so the movement of money from a bank account to a bank account with good funds availability is certainly, and doing so any time of day, any day of the week, is certainly a game changer. We have two now instant payment networks in the United States. The Clearinghouse launched the Real-Time Payments Network, RTP, back in 2017. And late-breaking news, Bo, your scheduling is amazing. You scheduled this session to happen on the day that FedNow becomes live. So the Federal Reserve just announced that FedNow, the public sector instant payments capability, is available in the United States. Both of the the instant payment systems in the United States, RTP and FedNow, operate on a messaging standard called ISO 20022. And while most users really don't care about that, particularly for business users, it promotes the possibility that invoicing and remittance information can travel along with the payment. So we'll talk a little bit about that. So before I do introductions, Bo, do we have the polls ready yet?
We do indeed. Great timing. Thank you.
All right. So we'll do the first poll first. We're kind of looking for a little bit of a feeling for who we have on the line. So the poll will pop up when Bo says it does. But the question is, what best describes you? And we're really looking for what kind of institution are you? Instant payments, and I'll give a little chat here while we're waiting for people to answer the poll, but instant payments are really interesting to banks and bankers, but reality is the hope of instant payments is to change the experience for people and enterprises and businesses of all sizes. And so we're really interested to see who we have on the line from the kind of accountancy and small business realm. So Bo, when they start slowing, when the incoming responses start slowing
Yeah, it looks
down,
like they've steadied here. So we're gonna just got a couple more
Hurry up.
votes,
You've only got 10, 9, 8, 7.
and ending the poll.
All right. So it seems like we have a lot of fintechs on the line and many financial institutions. So the financial institutions on the line, you can keep me honest. You can keep this panel honest with regard to what instant payments can do. For the fintech on the line, there's the instant payment services available are financial institution to financial institution services. They don't actually reach out to the end users of payments, consumers and sole proprietors and small businesses and enterprises. And as a result, there's a feeling that much of the ability of instant payments will actually come through features that are available from financial institutions and from fintechs. And so, Seth, it looks like we have 15% or so accountants and small businesses. So that's really your wheelhouse.
Yep, that's why I'm nodding my head. Very, very glad to see you accountants and small businesses here on this chat. I think you absolutely need to hear what's going to be said in this session. So
without further ado, we'll kind of jump into the presentation. With me today, I have Seth Feinberg with, I forgot the name of your company, Accountants Forward. Yes, I got it. Okay. Cheryl Gers with the Clearinghouse. Congratulations, Cheryl. She joined a little bit late because she was at the cocktail reception due to the launch. And Nick Chandy from Forwardly. So the way we're going to do this, we're going to give each panelist the opportunity to introduce themselves, a little bit about their company, and then make some opening comments on the topic. And then we'll get into some structured questions. But we do encourage questions from the audience. If you look at the bottom of your screen, there will be a Q&A button. Feel free to click the Q&A button. Bo and I will be monitoring that, and we'll kind of try and weave some of that in wherever we can. So without further ado, Seth, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and your company, and go ahead and make some opening comments.
Certainly, and thank you so much for having me to this chat. I think it's very timely. And it's also very relevant, not only to me as an independent contractor and what I do, but also in the firms and small businesses that they work with every day. So hi, I'm Seth Feinberg. If you are an accounting professional, most likely working with small businesses, I have likely spoken to you over the past 20 years or so. My background is as a business journalist and editor for over 30 years, but I've put over 20 of those years into covering the accounting profession, being an observer. I still regularly speak to accounting professionals and their work with small business clients. These days, while I was an editor at Accounting Today and Accounting Web. These days, I am an independent. I am very much focused on, really kind of the trends still going on in small business and with accounting professionals. As we know, behind the success of any small business or mid-sized business is an accounting professional. I firmly believe that. And these days, I'm kind of talking to them regularly so that they can kind of maybe have better relationships with a lot of the service providers in their space. I feel that in order for the profession to move forward, as I believe it can and should, they need to have sort of better relationships, going on with them. So I do so through content, through consulting, and again, I'm very happy to be here to give the sort of accountant and small business perspective. Thanks for having me.
Well, yes, and give your opening comments. What do you think of instant payments?
I think it is something that should have happened years ago. It could not have happened soon enough, as we know, and have seen the sort of the gloomy statistics that over 90% of small businesses fail within the first 3 years. Why is that? It's cash flow. If you are not on top of cash flow, if you're not, cash flow is another word of saying you are not paying me on time. You are not paying me regularly. I'm not able to kind of forecast out, what, I can do. I need to run my business, and the bookkeepers and accounting professionals are there for not only compliance purposes, but also to kind of help to, to kind of do the AP, do the AR work so that the small business can run. And, the more advanced ones are there, trying to, maybe do some planning, do some forecasting, and, really help that business stay in and survive. So, instant payments could not come soon enough. So it's great. It's a great day. It's a great time.
Excellent. Great. Thank you. And I should mention that on the global landscape, the United States is actually pretty well behind the rest of the world. The FedNow system launching today is probably, number 70 or 75 in terms of the countries where the central banks have launched an instant payment system. And as a result, we get a lot of information from other countries around the world that have launched instant payments capabilities as to how these things get used. And they have had positive impacts on, particularly on much smaller businesses, sole proprietors, mom and pop shops, things like that. Bo, do we have the second poll available? We do. Look at that. And so this is a quick yes, no. So those of you on the line can go ahead and choose it. But essentially, we're asking, have you experienced an instant payment? And so essentially, have you in your personal life, or maybe in your business life, because I know there are some companies that are offering access to the RTP network today, experienced a real-time payment? And to our speakers, Nick, I'm going to kick it over to you next. And then Cheryl, you get to come on and do your victory lap. How are we doing on the poll? There we go. So a little bit more than half have experienced an instant payment. And I wish I had a follow-on to this, which was, did you like it? One of the quickish questions that I ask is, do you want your money now or do you want your money later? Clearly, everyone is going to answer that question the same way. All right, Nick, over to you. You're a service provider to small businesses. Talk a little bit, first of all, introduce yourself and your company, but then talk a little bit about the impact that you foresee instant payments having to your customers.
Sure. Thank you, Peter. I'm Nick Chandy, CEO and co-founder of Forward AI. We are a technology provider that connects to all major accounting systems out there in the US market. Our product Forwardly use instant payments to deliver payments into the accounts of those small businesses or accountants instantly. So anytime a payment is made by the client, it shows up in the bank account instantly. We are the first company to introduce this one in the market, solely focused on the instant payment. So we don't use any other payment rail, and we are very excited about this new instant payment technology. And Peter, you talked about the impact, positive impact it is having on the nations and the small businesses all around the world. And I believe, with the solutions like we are building on top of ITP or FedNow, those kind of solutions, this is going to make a huge impact on the lives of small businesses. As Seth talked about the cash flow problems, so much money gets stuck in the checks. How many times you have heard, oh, check, I sent you the check and it's still in the mail. And payment that you sent on the Friday, you're still waiting on the Monday, and you couldn't spend it on the weekend. So I believe those kind of problems or challenges, they are going to be behind us over the time. So I'm very excited about the FedNow and the future of ITP.
Excellent, thank you. And so with that, I'm going to address a couple of questions in a couple of comments in the Q&A, just because we'll knock these off as we go along. It does not matter if any bank account for these instant payment systems, any bank account at a financial institution that is participating on an instant payments network has this capability available to them. I gave that qualification because adoption of these instant payments capabilities is not yet that broad. We have 9,500 plus financial institutions in the United States, and between RTP and FedNow, there are perhaps 375 that are connected to these networks. Hello, Attila, thank you. He makes a comment that I think is important. We tend to mesh terms. So a real-time payment and an instant payment are both within the category of faster payments. So in this session, we are talking about the particular class of payments that are instantly cleared and settled, available 24/7 by 365. And in various conversations, you will hear them referred to as real-time payments and instant payments. And with that, Cheryl, I'm going to go ahead and kick it over to you. First of all, welcome. Great to hear you, at least, if not see you, and congratulations. Today's a big day. So go ahead and introduce yourself and your company and some opening comments.
Thanks, Peter, and sorry, everyone, some technical difficulties, but I'm at least able to get on my phone and join by phone. Not how I should be, but I think people recognize sometimes there's technology glitches, even though we've been using these tools for a long time. And so my name is Cheryl Gers, and I'm one of the RTP product managers at the Clearinghouse. The Clearinghouse is an association that's owned by 22 banks in the United States, and they actually came together in 2017 and built the first instant payment network in the United States, and we called it RTP Network. And we've been up and running since November 2017, have over 350 plus FIs connected to the network. Previous to my time for the last almost 4 years at the Clearinghouse, I was a career banker, product manager for cash management products in the small business banking, middle market, and commercial space. So excited to be on this panel because those small business and business banking, I'll use them interchangeably. We're using RTP and instant interchangeably. In that space, there's a lot of opportunity for companies to use instant payments to enhance their business models and to bring efficiencies and strengthen some controls within their organization. So we're excited as the Clearinghouse to be able to be providing those services for through the banks for years now. Real excited, as Peter mentioned, FedNow did announce today that they're live on the network. And that will just help in the United States increase the reach, because what's important is the reach. And most, and I would say the majority of us have no idea what network it's clearing on. So sticking to instant payments as a method that can reach as many banks in the United States is more important than, is it on the RTP network or is it on the FedNow network? We just know for the marketplace, for small businesses, they just want to make sure their bank is able to send a business or receive a payment to their checking or savings accounts instantly. And that can only be done if their banks are part of either network.
All right. Well, hey,
And
I'm sorry, Cheryl, you have one more comment?
Yeah, your question about, I'm excited about instant payments. Of course, yes. We haven't had a new payment in the United States over 40 years. ACH was late 60s, 70s, old technology. It's a great workhorse. But as you mentioned, Peter, there's, over 70 instant payment networks in the globe globally. And it's time for US to be front and center and bringing a strong instant payment value proposition to all of the consumers, businesses, government agencies in the United States.
Excellent, thank you. So I think Bo, did you set up that next poll? Oh, look at that, that's wonderful. So for the people who answered the question, have you experienced an instant payment? Answer this question, did you like it? And while we're doing this, I'll address a couple more questions. There is a question in here about limits on payments The RTP limit, network limit is $1 million. The FedNow network limit is $500,000. The reason I am putting emphasis on the word network is because the financial institutions that offer products that give access to these networks can set their own limits. So depending on your relationship with your financial institution, you may see a different limit. And that's a compound question. How fast is instantaneous? Instantaneous is instantaneous. I believe the actual wording used in the Federal Reserve documentation is as soon as possible, but no more than several seconds. So with that, what's the
Peter,
outcome?
can I just
Sure,
make a clarification there?
Sure, jump in
On
there.
the $1 million limit at the clearinghouse, the $1 million has limit. On the send side, if you're trying to send funds, an FI can determine, based on certain qualifiers, that you may not be able to send $1 million, right? Based on your account status, who you are, risk factors. But every single bank on the RTP network, if $1 million payment is sent, every receiving bank has to receive it and post it immediately.
Yep.
So the restrictions are just on the send side. So if someone sends you $1 million to your small business to pay you, they have to give you that $1 million for us, it's 30 seconds.
Right. Yes, correct. Thank you. And so the outcome of the poll is, did you like it? 90% said yes. I would love to have an offline conversation with those 10% as to why they didn't like getting their money faster, probably because they had to pay a fee. But last item in that compound question is, what happens about mistakes? One of the characteristics of these payments is that they're irrevocable. And irrevocability cuts both ways. If you are the receiver of the payment, that's a very good thing. It means that you have 100% certainty that this money has come in and it's available to you and you can do whatever you want with it. And on the outbound side, it means that you've met your obligation. There's no question about that. It does raise the specter of what happens when there's a mistake. I'm not going to answer that question fully, but I will say that the word irrevocable does not mean that a payment is not irremediable. What it means is that you can't reverse the payment. So we'll stop there on that topic. Seth, we talked a lot about this concept of, having money available and, what could I do with this? So paint a picture of the financial agility that could be provided for smaller businesses.
Yes, thanks, Peter. So, again, regularly speaking with, the bookkeepers and accounting professionals, as I do, who, really, if, again, I'm just going to preface it by saying, if small business is the backbone of our economy, the backbone that supports that backbone are accounting professionals. So they're kind of in the trenches. They're helping, in a lot of cases, they're helping make those payments. They're, oftentimes in the bank accounts. They're, making sure that, that contractors, get paid, but also that their clients are also getting paid as well. So when things are not coming in, when you come up with a cash flow forecast, a lot of times there are unforeseen things, simple things like what we're talking about today. The old tried and true ACH. Well, there's two caveats to that. One is that ACH, as we know, is not always instant. In many cases, it is not, depending on who's banking with who, what bank's talking to who. Secondly, and more importantly, is just kind of a practical thing where there are a lot of businesses and contractors, they don't feel comfortable, paying that way. They don't feel comfortable, just kind of doing that and going through that, what might seem like a, kind of a simple step, setting up an ACH form, setting up that. They're not really very comfortable. It's just a very practical thing. They don't feel like doing that. So the need to be paid, as soon or as quickly as possible. I mean, obviously, we're hearing today that can actually now happen in a matter of seconds. Is, I would dare say, revolutionary. I would think that we would be hearing, more small businesses and accounting professionals knew about this, they'd be cheering from the rafters. But the fact of the matter is that hasn't been the case. And even a matter of just a holdup of a few days, once you add that up, when you're waiting to get paid by multiple vendors, that can literally cripple a business in no uncertain terms. You know, when you're really expecting things to kind of come in, you're running a restaurant, you're running a retail shop, retail business, whatever it might be, where you're sort of expecting payments to regularly come in and they're not, and there's some kind of delay. Granted, there are situations, and I know in sort of our pre-conference, we did talk about the outside possibility that, instant payments, not everyone necessarily, wants to pay right away or is able to pay right away. That's something you work out, I think, with your accountant, your accounting professional about that. You should have those conversations, as a business. But by and large, if you're on the AR side, if you're on the receiving end, it is the lifeblood of your business. If you're not, it's literally the heart. If you're not regularly getting paid, as soon as you are really able to, that can send you under.
Yes, and I always
just
tell
very,
people
very blunt
visibility
terms.
is good. I hear from a lot of small businesses, oh my gosh, I would hate that. I count on that 2 or 3 day lag. But reality is, you don't know that it's going to be 2 or 3 days. If you're in the same financial,
it's that unknown that that panics,
right? So yeah,
it's that unknown that panics businesses.
Yeah, having control and visibility. I'm going to knock off a couple of questions here. There's a question in here about PCI compliance. PCI is particularly a card-based requirement, so it's not going to apply to instant payments. There's a question in here about how a financial institution can educate its business customers on what this stuff is all about. I'm going to be a shill here for a moment and give a plug to the Faster Payments Council. Go to www.fasterpaymentscouncil.org. U.S. Faster Payments Council has many resources available for you to both learn about and talk about instant payments within your customer base. So let's in our prep we said, hey, this all sounds like wonderful stuff, but earlier I said we only have 350 banks that are signed up for this. What are the barriers to adoption? So Cheryl, why don't you start with that, and then Nick, will kick it over to you because I think that you'll be able to respond to some of the things that Cheryl mentions. Cheryl?
Thanks, Peter. Yeah, we have on the network, we've seen 3.1 million consumers in June actually made a payment, at least one payment, and over 155,000 businesses have made a payment. So there's many individuals and businesses starting to use it, but many aren't. And why aren't they doing it? And when we look at some of the insights that we're monitoring on patterns and whatever, we're seeing a few things. One is, I know we just talked about the accounting professionals and bookkeepers, but in many situations in small business and business banking, the owner is the bookkeeper. And they are not familiar. They know what they've been doing already today. They go their bank online banking, and they have a way of making their financial transactions, and they haven't looked or kept current with some of the information the banks might be communicating to them that said, hey, look, where you go down on your online banking and you ask for an ACH or for us to drop a check, there's actually a slot there now that you can do a real-time payment. You can do an instant. There's different names on it. So again, it's the banks, how they're educating, and are they putting these services into bundles? So much of the challenges today is just education and doing something different and knowing there's something different available to you. And also the majority of times payments in this segment are done through banks, and some of the banks have not yet developed their front end product to let you use that. They're still in the design stages, and it will be coming on. But trying to find out how to use real-time payments is really about talking to, yes, Faster Payments will give you overall views, but most small businesses have one bank. They're not using 20 banks like some of the large corporations are. Talk to your bank, look at the information they're sending you and seeing what they're educating you how you can go on your system. Many banks now are also doing bundles. So part of your bundle on your entry cash management, where you have maybe some lockbox, you might have some remote deposit capture, you might have some ACH, they're adding in instant payments. So finding ways to understand how you can make it. It's also understanding that some of your vendors will be offering an option of instant payments. You might be getting an ACH payment today from your vendor to come in. That vendor might be emailing you and saying, will you let us do instant pay? Or you have to go to our website and sign up for an instant pay. Just be aware of places and find places that are encouraging you to engage with an instant payment experience. But that's been the challenges. The other challenges are, yes, it's 353 banks. There's, as you said, 9,500 banks. Is if you're at a bank and they don't have it, let them know that they should have it, that you want it, or you can walk across the street and get it. So it's table stakes for these community and credit unions now. It's not strategic any longer. They, again, in any kind of business, even in the small businesses, they react to what their customers want. So if you're with a bank or you're using a vendor, tell them you want instant payments and use your voice to make this more normal, because right now it seems special. Early adopters are going for it. We need to get it into where it's mainstream, main street for every small business using their vendors and their banks.
And we made a thing about that now this morning because of the announcement, but clearly today, RTP has the greatest reach. RTP is available to any of the financial institutions that are online today. And I think we're crossing over 70-some million transactions a month. Is that right, Cheryl?
Actually, next couple of days, you're going to see an announcement. We're hitting 500 million milestone, and we're doing about 20 or so more a month, and it grows every single month.
Yeah, great. So this stuff.
20 million.
So Nick, before I kick it over to you, I'm gonna answer one question in the chat because it gives you a great lead in. The question is, how is this different from Venmo and Cash App, and what does Forwardly offer? So I'll let you take the second one, but the first one. Understand whether or not the money that's moving is ending up in your bank account or not. When you move money in Cash App or Venmo or PayPal or Apple Cash, the money is still sitting on the balance sheet of those providers and it is not in your bank account. And so instant payments are payments that are bank account to bank account payments. And again, instantly cleared and settled. There's another question in here about the payments being funded by ACH. ACH is a payment rail. The instant payments, RTP, is a fundamentally new payment rail. It's different. So payments are funded by RTP. Reg CC generally should not apply because they're instant. They'll be done within several seconds. So Nick, a little bit, kind of address some of the roadblocks, the barriers that Cheryl talked about, and a little bit more about what Forwardly does.
Yeah. Thank you, Peter. Yes, Cheryl, mentioned, about the banks. Other challenge, Peter, I see is when I visit a bank branch, and even though RTP has been around with us for such a long time, but we still need to see some kind of promotion or awareness on the side of the banks. And it's a challenge that very few banks, they are enabling sending payment, and most of the interest, I believe close to 70% is on the receiving side. And we can understand why that one is. And other challenge, where Forwardly is playing a big role here is, so far, if you look at the history of RTP and now FedNow, these are the infrastructure layers. And they are built for bank to bank, and we don't have the front end interface that could enable those kind of payments for consumers or small businesses. Yes, we do see on Cash App or Venmo, those kind of apps, but they are kind of closed loop apps and money move between these wallets. So, but that's a even though that gives you kind of instant payment experience, but still it's very different than bank to bank payment. It's more like a Zelle we can compare, offered by more than 1,800 banks. So, and now it's left to companies like Forwardly to build those kind of value-added solutions on top of the FedNow or RTP solutions. So that's what we are doing, because we are serving small businesses and accountants, and as you know, they have building any kind of payment solution or be able to send or receive payments is very, very complex for small businesses. There are multiple owners. You need to do KYC on them, and there are sometimes approval workflows are needed. Who is gonna, many times, the person making the payment has no idea whether the product or service was even delivered, right? So businesses have way more complex workflows. Sometimes, W-9 need to be collected, or W-8 to 1099. Sometimes issues are out there too. And then you need to reconcile it with the accounting systems. So business needs are very different, and I believe that's one of the reasons we haven't seen any kind of initiative on the SMB side. And we are the first company to bring this one and focus exclusively on instant payment. We are going to support RTP. We are already supporting RTP, and we are going to support FedNow too, building all these kind of solutions based on the plumbing that's available to us on the RTP and FedNow. And based on our early conversation with accountants, I can share that there is a huge interest, and I still need to meet someone who didn't want to get paid faster. Everyone,
Yes.
we saw in the survey, so many, 90% of the people, they want instant payments.
Want to get their money faster. That's
Yeah.
right. So let me knock off a couple more questions, and then oh, go ahead, Cheryl.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of level set around faster, because if you're using instant payments to manage your cash conversion cycle, you're actually making precision payments. So you're not paying 3 days faster. You're paying exactly when that payment is due. So if you're in traditional ACH or a check, you got to mail that check out 7 days before. You're hoping it doesn't get there in cash before you have the money in there. On an ACH, you might have to have, pre-funded a couple days before. What real-time payments, instant payments really brings to you is, that you owe this payment by 6 p.m. on Friday, that you can send this payment out at 5:55 p.m. on Friday, and you're going to get a confirmation back within 30 seconds that it's been paid. So it's faster in the settlement, but not faster. And I have to make my payments faster, because a lot of small businesses get real concerned and say, why do I want to pay my payment? Why do I want to pay faster? You're not paying faster, you're settling faster, but you're able to use this new payment rail to really match your incoming and outgoing. I love, I went to see talk to a small business, and they took advantage of their merchant processor who's offering instant payment. So they closed their POS machine out at 5:30 at night. 8 o'clock at night, because of instant payments, they receive the $10,000 that they did today. And then at 8:10, they're at home with their online banking portal, and they're making their payments to their vendors that are due that day. And they have the value date of that day. So it's such an opportunity with small businesses to really match their incoming receipts to their outgoing payment obligations. It's just
great.
a different approach we're trying.
I love the phrase
faster.
precision payment, Cheryl. I hope you trademark that.
Mhm.
I'm going to knock off another couple of questions. There are 2 or 3 questions in here about cross-border transactions, foreign exchange transactions. Both the RTP network and the new FedNow network are domestic payments only. There is no international component to these. And in fact, of the 70 or so instant payment schemes around the world, that is universally true with rare exceptions. We're starting to see a couple of corridors between instant payment schemes bridge, but right now it's all domestic payments. TCH has a program going on with Europe, but it's investigative at this moment. Hey, Seth, so we've talked a lot about, I love precision payments, so I'm going to use it right now. So if a small business can do these precision payments, why aren't they?
I mean, a lot of it might just be, just like lack of awareness. I mean, we were talking about like, oh, why don't banks sort of know about this, or, small businesses, like, you got it, the accountants have to be, that work with them have to be more educated. And those who do, I think you also hit it on the head too. There's situations where it's like, hey, I'm not really able to pay instantly, but it's about, receiving those payments. So we're talking about it from an AR point of view, which again, can also affect like how you pay out as well. It can affect your AP. But when you're talking about receiving funds, again, by and large, as far as why they're not doing it, I think it could just be, sort of lack of awareness, lack of trust, what have you. I mentioned the ACH situation before. But this is something I think really should be shouted to the small business and accounting world, that that this exists, and this is really going to be the next level of getting paid, and could really end up saving a lot of sweat, and ultimately a lot of small businesses from from panic, and even just going under, as we saw in the last few years. A lot of businesses just really expecting people to physically come in, or physically make those transactions, and they just couldn't. And so what do you do? I think that maybe if people were, in some instances, if you were able to get paid instantly, sure, that probably would have helped. But there are, of course, nuances.
Yeah.
And Peter,
but definitely the awareness thing for sure. Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to jump in because RTP and now FedNow, right? The instant payment networks were really made to support digital commerce. And that's where they exceed on mobile interfaces, on any kind of UIs. And we're seeing that some companies that have, a legacy mindset or legacy infrastructures, and they're not, ordering online, or they're not taking advantage of interactions with their own customers with digital commerce, they're probably lagging on instant payments also, because some of the legacy, and this is more probably the higher end business banking customers, they have set legacy processes in place. They go and run a check run, and the checks in their own organization go out, trying to integrate some of that yet. And that's what's nice about Forwardly, getting those set processes today into a digital, more agile environment is, the small businesses need. That's why they have to, I think, look at their vendors. They have to look at their accountants, like you were saying, and their banks, because let's face it, small businesses are there to grow their business. Banking is secondary. Accounting, unfortunately, is secondary to many of them. They're expecting others to help them in that expertise. They don't hire CFOs or CIOs. They're looking for partners out there that will help them manage their accounting systems and their payment processes. And those are the guys that need to learn and get out to their customers.
It's definitely a challenge, and I was reading a study, there are less than 4% small businesses, they use any kind of digital platform to send or receive payments. So you can see the adoption of these kind of platforms is very, very low. That can make the payments faster for them to receive or send. And I know a printing company owner, a small printing shop, and he will literally drive 30 minutes, 40 minutes to pick up a check and stand in the line at the bank and deposit it, and these are the people who who work really hard. You said that they are the backbone of our economy, but they are spending 10, 12 hours working, and they should not be spending time there. And it's all about creating awareness. Guys, there are better options out there. Now we are able to receive payment faster. Now you're able to send payment faster. And I think it's going to be needed some efforts from the banks and from the companies like us and the community at large.
And I would dare say accounting professionals too, those who are working with them, they need that education, Nick, and Cheryl and Peter. They need to understand what is truly available. Manually sending invoices and payment reminders just takes up way too much time and resources. Automation and is here. It's been here for some time. AI obviously is sort of that next level that's coming in. But you just don't know what you don't know, and that's why I think today really is a great day, because now is the time to where we can really just say, hey, you know what, the old way of doing things has actually gotten better. So yeah, you just I can't say it enough. You just really don't know what you don't know, and if you're not automating. If bookkeeping, accounting professionals, aren't sort of in their corner, just really understanding what is available out there to make things kind of move faster and really for cash flow to be, literally more positive. You're doing your client a disservice. I'm sorry to say.
Yeah. So let me knock off a couple of questions and lead us into the last quarter of hour, because we've been on a little bit of a downer. So we want to say, hey, what's all good about this? So first, the questions. You can find out the banks that are available on RTP at the Clearinghouse website, theclearinghouse.org. Questions from credit unions and banks as to how they get onto instant payments platforms. Drop an email to Keith Gray or Steve Douglas at the Clearinghouse, and they'll go ahead and get you set up, or find your Federal Reserve representative and ask them questions. And there was a question about what happens. I mentioned earlier ISO 20022, the opportunity to have an invoice flow along with a payment. What happens if the other side's not on one of these networks? And so let's talk a little about this rapid adoption and how we manage in the near term this imbalance between kind of those who have and those who don't. Who wants to jump in here?
Yeah, maybe I'll jump in here. You talked about ISO 20022. In fact, we are very excited about that. I know it's still early days, and we don't have the infrastructure ready to handle that one, but in the coming years, I believe there would be, and I believe this is going to make reconciliation of any kind of accounting data very simple, very, very simple. And if you look at we work with the accountants a lot. I spent my last 20 years working with accountants and bookkeepers. And we know they spend a lot of time reconciling their books and making sure that they close properly, and they're always up to date, and reconciling them always has been a challenge. In accounting, if you look at small business workflow, you can automate maybe 70–80% of the things they do on day-to-day basis. But reconciliation is one of the things where you need to have some kind of human element. And part of the problem came from because there was very little information available on the bank statement. If you look at ACH, it can take only, I believe, 94 characters. You can add only so much, and that's why sometimes we see the abbreviated name for Starbucks or other big name companies, very, very 2, 3, 4 words, right? With ISO 20022, it's a much bigger pipe. You can push a lot more data, and I believe it's just a matter of time when we will start seeing the other information on the bank statement, like your invoice number, or even you can add the whole PDF copy of the invoice to the bank statement as well, just like the checks. We get a copy of our checks. It's possible that tomorrow the copy of your whole invoice would be available with your bank. You know, you can add line items, you can add the tax amount, anything you want to add about invoice and send it to the counterparty. Those kind of things will be possible with these new technologies as well.
Seth, I saw you giving thumbs up, thumbs up. Go ahead and weigh in.
No, I was just saying, just like that kind of stuff, I'm kind of being, you know, on behalf of the bookkeeper, that they want to see those things come through in, you know, in accounts receivable, in their you know, bookkeeping system. That, you know, that kind of record.
Yeah, it's nice network now. Like the ISO message, there's only one ISO message actually moves money, and that's the credit transfer, because it's a credit push system, and it's called a PAX 08. And in the message today, and I see this a lot when we look at the activity on the network. So the payments go out, the sending bank, and they allow their customers, their small business, I think it's 120 characters. And I see so much that says invoice 1, 2, 3, 4 and invoice 6, 7, 8, 9. That all is then already today in that small PAX 08 ISO message. It's sent to the receiving bank, and all the banks on real-time payment network, the receiving bank is required to present that information to them. So
Uh-oh. Looks like we lost Cheryl.
I think she dropped out for a second.
Coming back in. So we're getting down to the last 5 minutes. She's trying to get back in. Oh, there you go. Are you there?
I think I'm here. Yeah.
Yes, you are.
So my only final there is that bookkeepers today on the receive side have remittance data, at least the invoice number, which is pretty much what most small businesses start out providing. So it's there for the accountants and bookkeepers, and I can't wait for them to find more out about that. I'm done.
Okay, all right. So we're coming up on 7 minutes to close. So I'll knock off a couple more questions. Seth, Nick, Cheryl, take a look at the Q&A, see if there's anything you want to address. But I think that at the end of the day, where was one?
Yeah, there's a lot of things just about, you know, the banks themselves and working with the banks,
Yep.
particularly small regional banks. And, you know, these are good questions about, you know, it's those, you know, it's very relevant. Just be like, okay,
Yeah.
like, how do banks find out about this and how they participate? Like, I'm assuming that it's a, you know, maybe this is a Cheryl question, like, is it a raise your hand thing, or is it just, yeah, like, if you're whether you're a small regional bank or, even larger, this is going to be, is this something that you have to actively participate in, or?
Yes.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Cheryl.
I can answer that. Yeah, quickly. I mean, most of banks have, many banks are using third-party service providers. If you're using a third-party service provider for much of your payment infrastructure, you just reach out to them. You can be up and running in a couple weeks for many of the express onboarders. So it's all about, first, if you're with FIS, Fiserv, Jack Henry, COCC, all these Alacrity, these third-party processors, they can get you up. You just call them. And for banks that are a little bigger that don't use, to what Peter said, just call the clearinghouse, look at us online, and we'll help you through. But it's because it's table stakes now, there's so many ways to get on board quickly. Because the folks before you, we got it all routine and very automated in bringing you on board. So please call either your payment provider or clearinghouse or FedNow, your Fed rep. We'll get you there.
Yeah. All right. So we're not going to get to all the questions. I can knock off a couple. There's some questions in here around Reg E. Does Reg E apply? This is an electronic payment. So the qualifications of Reg E apply primarily between the bank and the bank's customer, not so much directly to the network. There are questions, as Seth commented, about community banks and how do we get community banks on the system. It's really about getting them encouraged to raise their hand and say, I would like to be a part of this. There's a question around how do I actually initiate an instant payment, and most of the time that's going to happen through a service provider. Nick, talk about kind of how how does these systems, the clearinghouse offers RTP to financial institutions, but how will businesses actually generally see these things kind of through their ERP platforms or or whatever?
Yeah, it's a, if you look at, from our perspective at Forwardly, when we connect to accounting system and we also connect to banking system. So I believe that there's a role a company like us play that we connecting data, what we see in the accounting system with the banking system, so that we can reconcile that kind of data here. I saw one question is about, what if your bank is not on the ITP or Fed now? Well, what's going to happen? Okay. Yeah, it's a challenge, when you have only 350 banks on the ITP, and we have so many banks who don't have this kind of a instant payment ability to receive. It's going to be a challenge, but that's where the company like us, we jump in and we play. Like I shared, we build that kind of value chain on top of this one, so that we can work with any bank. So we can push the money into any bank that can receive the payment. And the provider like us, what we do is, if the receiving bank is not on the ITP, then we send them the money in the other fastest way possible. It could be the same day ACH or something else. So there are options available. So talk to your bank, and if you would like to talk to us, we would be happy to share how it works or what we have done and what are the options available. But otherwise, I believe we are heading in the right direction. I saw a comment from someone, it's going to be a game changer, when for a small business, if you are hit with a natural disaster and your insurance company is going to pay you in seconds, and you don't have to wait for the check for 5 days or 3 days for ACH to arrive, that could be a life and death kind of situation for small businesses.
Yep.
So we will see a positive impact everywhere, wherever we can see.
All right. Well, we're down to the last couple of minutes, so we're going to do a quick 30-second each lightning round. Like, what are your final comments? What would you leave the audience with? Let's go. Seth, Nick, and Cheryl will give you the last word. Seth?
Look, I think it's very clear that a lot of education and advocacy needs to occur. I highly encourage accounting professionals, the bookkeepers who are really, in charge of AR, really, helping with cash flow forecast and cash flow management for their small and mid-sized business clients, to get educated on not only the tools that are available, but, also, the different, kinds of payment systems, that are available out there. It's really just, really a matter of time. And I know that it can be overwhelming and confusing, but, educating yourselves is really going to, help you and also help your clients.
Yeah, and I'll put in a plug again for the Faster Payments Council, where you can get some of that education and participate in advocacy. Nick?
Yeah. Peter, it's still very, very expensive and slow. We talked about that one. So I believe, we are heading in a direction where instant payments from ITP or Fed now, they will be ubiquitous. Your friends will be using it, your peers, your colleagues, your business partners, they'll be using it in the next 3-5 years. We are heading in that direction. I don't think it's going to replace ACH or checks or anytime soon, but the shift is happening on that side though.
Excellent. And Cheryl, go ahead and bring us home.
Instant payments are here, continue to grow. Anytime you bring new technology into any field, it takes time for adoption to take off. I think we're at that takeoff point. FedNow, RTP together with the education, with faster payments, is finally getting an audience that are moving away from just education to actually application and usage. And it's just webinars like this and information like, the information we're sharing in multiple different medias, please, all of you, continue to do your investigation of why this is good for you. Share it with everyone you know, and we'll see more and more adoption by the U.S. marketplace.
Indeed. Okay, so we did not get to all the questions in the Q&A. So if you have questions, please forward them to the Fintech Nexus team, and they will find us on behalf of the audience. Seth, Nate, Nick, Cheryl, thank you very much. Bo, back over to you.
Thanks
Thank
so
you.
much. Peter, you did a brilliant job of moderating and taking all of those questions. We may have broken a record in terms of audience interaction. Just a fantastic group. Thank you, all of you, for showing up and bringing that energy. Thanks, Nick, and to the whole Forwardly team for making this possible. And again, I just want to reiterate that, look, we're all here to support the banking and the entrepreneurs, and that is a service we're providing today. So please reach out to the panelists, reach out to us, and subscribe and follow to all those on the webinar today, because this knowledge share should continue. Thanks again, everyone, and have an amazing day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.